All right, so what I'm going to do is go through some examples that use the rules of exponents. If you're a little rusty on what those rules are, you need to go back and just look at the notes that were on the HyperDoc before these examples. So what I'm doing, I'm not giving you the notes. Those notes are already there for you. Those are the rules. Those are the properties. So again, if you're a little rusty, you may want to go back and look at that before you watch this video. What I'm going to do here is actually show you how to use those rules in order to simplify expressions that have exponents in them. So the first one, I have a power to a power. So anytime I have something that looks like that, I'm going to multiply those exponents. So this would be x to the 12th. So this is when I have a power raised to a power. A lot of times I get that confused with the next one. Here, I'm not raising anything to a power. What I'm doing is I'm multiplying two powers. So when I'm multiplying these, what this means is I've got x times x times x. This means I've got the same thing, only I've got 4 of them. So here, when I multiply these together, I actually end up with x to the 7th, not the 12th. So this is when I multiply powers. This is when I add them. These are the two that I see mixed up the most. Okay. We're also going to see it when we have more than one thing inside. So if we have a power out here, we're just going to distribute it to each thing here. However, you need to be careful. A lot of times I'll see these things get multiplied. That's not what this is saying. This is a base or a big number. This is an exponent or a little number. So I'm not multiplying the 2 times the 2. I'm taking -2 to the second. Now, when I have two exponents, so this is an exponent and this is an exponent, that's when I can multiply them. And then to finish this, I just square that -2, which would give me a +4. And notice, if the negative's in parentheses, you need to be careful that you carry that to the next step. And when we square a -2, we're actually multiplying a -2 times a -2, so we end up with a +4 for that one. Okay. My next one, I'm multiplying these again, no powers to powers. So the big numbers out front just get multiplied. So 5 times 4 gives me 20. And then the exponents are like we had up here, where I would just add those together. So I've got 3x's here, 7x's here, so I'd end up with x to the 10th for that one. I'm going to switch to another color because we're getting a little bunched up there. So the good news about rules of exponents is when you have more than one, guys, hey, another room please, I'm trying to do a video. Okay, so the good news is when you use the rules of exponents, if you're using more than one of them, it doesn't matter what order you do it in. So we could distribute this 2 to each thing in here. We could simplify what's in here and then distribute. So there's not really an order we have to follow. We just have to make sure that we follow the rules correctly. So I like to make this simpler before I multiply those. So I'm going to take a minute and do that first. Here, these are big numbers. So I'm just dividing them. So 35 divided by 63. It doesn't go in evenly, but 7 goes into both of those. So 7 goes in here 5 times and in here 9 times. So that tells me when I simplify this, I'm going to have a 5 on top and a 9 on the bottom. Okay. When I am dividing, oh, I got a negative exponent. So if I have a negative exponent, the way they write it is 1 over, so they do the reciprocal. I think that can get kind of confusing when it's on the bottom because then I've got a fraction in a fraction. So the way I look at it is if it's on the top, it moves to the bottom. If my negative is on the bottom, it moves to the top to become positive. So for right now, I'm just going to keep that x to the 3rd, and I'm going to move my x to the 4th up there. And when I move it, that's when I can get rid of the negative. All right, here I'm dividing these two. So we haven't looked at one of those yet, but if you look at your rules, you subtract. So if I take the 4 minus 7, I get a negative number, and then I have to move with or mess with moving things around. So my advice is I always go bigger minus smaller. So here I'm going to take the 7 minus 4. So what that means is I've got 4 y's up here, and I've got 7 of them down here. 4, 5, 6, 7. So what's going to happen is each one of these up here is going to cancel each one down at the bottom. So what happens is I still get the 7 minus 4, which is the 3, but they're at the bottom. So what I do with these two numbers is I just subtract them. and then the answer goes wherever the bigger one was. So since the bigger exponent was on the bottom, that's why my y's are on the bottom. Looks like to finish this up, all I need to do is combine these. So my 5 stays on top, my 9 stays on the bottom. Here I'm multiplying these, so I would add their exponents, and my y would be on the bottom.